I'm Forrest Sawyer with ABC News. It's a story that broke in Texas right here on News 8. We've asked Channel 8's Robert Riggs to prepare a special Nightline report on the anti-government group calling themselves the Republic of Texas. Could this brand of paper terrorism be spreading outside of Texas? Find out Monday on Nightline after the News 8 update at 10.
This is ABC News Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Cokie Roberts.
Suppose you were an upstanding, law-abiding, bill-paying citizen who wanted to take out a second mortgage on your home. And suppose the bank denied you credit because someone had filed a lien on your property. You'd be puzzled at first and then probably furious. That's exactly what's been happening to people all around the country, and some have spent thousands of dollars trying to clear their titles. It's all the result of a clever plot by anti-government groups that have decided it's easier to overthrow a government with paper than with guns. Members of these groups have seized on a perfectly legal technique to harass their enemies. They go to the courthouse, tell the clerk they have some sort of claim or lien on another person's property. It's a tool designed to protect people like house painters, to give them some leverage when it comes time to collect. Often the clerks don't check these claims, they simply file them. Once on file, removing a lien can be a nightmare, and as long as it's there, it can be impossible to sell a house or get a loan. In Texas, some anti-government activists are burying the state in these malicious liens and daring the authorities to do anything about it. Robert Riggs of Dallas affiliate WFAA filed this report for Nightline.
Giving them notice it's time to vacate the soil and get out of Texas.
When a belligerent group called the Republic of Texas first marched on the state capitol, hardly anyone had ever heard of them. Their demands sounded comical. They wanted to evict the governor and claimed they held title to not only the Capitol building, but all of Texas. It's no longer a laughing matter.
They now are really causing some very severe hardship, not just to individual Texans, but to the entirety of the state as a whole. They are no longer a minor nuisance. They now have become a legitimate and a substantial concern for law enforcement, particularly in our state, and we are reacting accordingly.
From a remote outpost in the Davis Mountains of West Texas, they wreak havoc on the state's legal system. The former garage for a volunteer fire department is now the embassy of the Republic of Texas.
What soil are we stepping onto here?
Also, the Republic of Texas.
Not the state of Texas.
No, the Republic of Texas.
Richard McLaren is the Republic's ambassador and self-taught legal authority. He's escorted by armed Texas Ranger-style guards and leads efforts to overthrow the state.
McLaren once tried to turn Jeff Davis County into the 51st state of the Union. Now he plans to turn it into an international zone and threatens to blow up enemies of the Republic, not with bombs, but with paper. An avalanche of paper.
This is the first time that anybody's ever attempted regaining a nation without firing a shot.
McLaren is actually a native of Missouri, but says he became interested in Texas independence when he wrote a third-grade book report on the Alamo. McLaren claims Texas did not legally enter the Union in 1845.
We've got to let the people know that we now stand as a sovereign nation.
That radical view of Texas history has the support of hundreds of people who are fed up with the government. Many don't believe they have to pay taxes or register their vehicles. The Republic issues its own license plates. When police hand out a ticket, seize license tags, or make an arrest, it's considered an act of piracy.
Anybody that gets pulled over, stopped, arrested, you can demand to be read your rights under the Geneva Convention, because the United States is a party to the Geneva Convention, and you are a prisoner of war.
The Republic's members run common law courts that officials call kangaroo courts. County Clerk Tim Hodges was a target, and his family is now in hiding because of threats.
They said I had been tried in their court, found guilty of conspiracy and fraud, and fined $1,000 and given 10 days to pay that. That's very unusual. I've never got anything like that. And quite frankly, it stood the hair up on the back of my neck.
Republic of Texas versus debtors, USA, Federal Reserve Bank, International Monetary Funds, and the Holy See.
The renegade common law courts meet in motel conference rooms. Their most intimidating weapon is one that is perfectly legal, the lien. In Texas, as in dozens of other states, anyone can go in the county clerk's office and file a lien for a nominal fee, whether it's legitimate or not. A lien blocks the sale of a home or property until a creditor has been paid back for his loan.
Officials say members of the Republic of Texas have filed thousands of bogus liens against top lawmakers, judges, and anyone else who gets in their way. Most people don't know they're victims until they try to sell their homes. Then they have to hire an attorney, which can cost hundreds to thousands of dollars to get the phony liens off their credit records.
In some cases, loans have been declined. They couldn't be made in a timely way because property was encumbered by these phony liens. So the Republic of Texas has been a major nuisance and a major headache to the banking system in this state.
McLaren first declared a paper war on his West Texas neighbors in nearby Fort Davis 12 years ago. He even filed a lien against all county property, claiming it belonged to his republic.
I raised her from baby.
The liens disrupted the retirement plans of Michelle Barrett and her husband. When they moved here from the Midwest, they say one of McLaren's liens blocked them from buying their dream home.
He does not believe in the federal government, but he gets his mail. He does not believe in paying any kind of taxes, but he drives the roads. The man goes and he files papers at the courthouse, but he doesn't believe in the state government. I think the man is a total and complete exercise in hypocrisy.
And the Attorney General says it's paper terror.
Well, we consider it paper. What would you do if you were him? He's losing his system. It's going down. They can't stop it.
The Republic's homepage on the internet spreads the paper war to other anti-government groups. The Republic even prints its own checks on official-looking paper. Texas Attorney General Morales says members have passed millions of dollars in worthless checks using phony bank codes.
You think somebody would buy it?
We're going to have people buying it. What do you think we've been financing the computers? That's state money we've been spending.
Texas state money.
Texas state money. That's why old Morales is not a happy camper. It's all paper.
The quorum is present.
The Texas governor has declared an emergency, so the legislature can rush into law criminal penalties for filing false liens.
What would you say to the governor and the attorney general?
Get him out. Get him out now. We're tired of messing with him. We're tired of him messing up our lives.
The state slapped McLaren with a running fine that exceeds $5 sextillion. Federal and state arrest warrants are out for McLaren for defying court orders to stop filing bogus liens and documents.
The last thing in the world we want to do is provoke some type of violent confrontation along the lines of what we saw in Waco and Ruby Ridge and elsewhere around the country.
If it's a paper war, what do you do when they show up with a piece of paper someday that's an arrest warrant for Richard McLaren?
We say, you know what would you do if the Marine Guard of a U.S. embassy and somebody showed up illegally wanting to arrest the ambassador in that U.S. embassy? What would the Marine Guard do? We're under the same thing.
McLaren shows no sign of retreat, and his paper war continues while law enforcement authorities watch and wait. For Nightline, I'm Robert Riggs in the Davis Mountains.
How to deal with groups like the Republic of Texas? When we come back, two different approaches from the Attorneys General of Texas and Missouri.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Lexus.
Late updates.
With El Paso, Nightline.
Authorities in the Republic of Texas are locked in a hostage standoff in the Davis Mountains in West Texas. The standoff that began about 10 hours ago signals the Separatist group's escalation from angry words and bogus liens to violence. Good evening. Over the past several months, the historical inaccuracies and wild legal claims made by this faction of the Republic of Texas seem to make them almost comical, except for the threat of violence, a threat they made good on today when they took a couple hostage near their so-called embassy near Fort Davis. Channel 8's Robert Riggs has been at the standoff today, and he joins us now live from Pecos. Robert?
Brad, for weeks, the Republic of Texas threatened an armed confrontation, much like the Branch Davidian siege outside Waco, if anyone tried to arrest them. Well, now they have their standoff, and they have declared war against the government.
More than 100 federal, state, and local law enforcement agents surrounded hostage takers at the remote Republic of Texas outpost in the Davis Mountains. Texas troopers blockaded all access to the Republic of Texas embassy. Heavily armed officers stood on lookout for sympathetic militia groups that might try to reinforce the belligerent group in its standoff. Richard McLaren, the self-proclaimed ambassador of the Republic, declared war and ordered the takeover of an elderly neighbor's home. He pronounced Joe Rowe and his wife, M.A. Rowe, prisoners of war. Rowe suffered 2 minor gunshot wounds, according to neighbors and a county judge. At Rowe's home, a strident member of the Republic's Defense Force answered the phone and would not allow the Rowes to speak.
We have a military situation in progress. One of our lieutenants in our military unit was taken a prisoner of war by the Jeff Davis County Sheriff's Department early this morning.
The siege erupted when the Jeff Davis County Sheriff arrested the captain of the embassy's security guard shortly before noon for gun possession. McLaren had turned more angry after the arrest of a Republic of Texas member last week in Austin for filing phony liens. The embassy had notified the Texas Attorney General it was an act of war. Richard Otto, also known as White Eagle, had posted military alerts on the Republic's webpage. By telephone, we asked Otto what it would take to end the standoff.
It's very simple. We got 2, they got 2, we swap, and they stop preying on our people.
Paramedics set up a staging area near the entrance to the rugged Davis Mountain Resort. 100 retirees are trapped inside their homes, in effect held hostage, cut off by the Republic's armed forces. Paramedics prepared for the worst-case scenario.
Folks, we got to have a lot of room to work if things get nasty. Not that I'm anticipating them getting nasty or anything like that.
In recent conversations, McLaren had grown increasingly paranoid and edgy. He had even told the FBI that he was ready for a shootout. There is an FBI negotiator on the way to the scene tonight who had struck up a rapport with McLaren and his followers, and it is likely that they will react very cautiously as they have thus far, learning the lessons of Waco, treating this like the standoff with the Montana Freeman, which ended peacefully. However, there will be a pressing timetable. There are many people trapped inside that are elderly, that need medication, need to see the doctor, as well as people outside who tonight are very frustrated, saying they need to get inside there and feed their animals and also pick up various medications and check on their loved ones. Brad?
Robert, this faction of the Republic of Texas says it has sympathizers. Any other groups out there?
Brad, we've seen no scene of that tonight. The police radios in the area have been crackling with reports of camouflage men loaded in vans, headed on the way. Of course, some of those reports may actually be ATF FBI agents who are in rental vehicles coming in from the airport. Interestingly, about a month ago, after one of my stories on the Republic, the head of a Klan group in Wise County, the group that's now accused of the bomb plot to blow up the natural gas facility there, had called me and said that if Richard McLaren was betting on them coming out to help or any other militias, he couldn't count on them, that they wouldn't be drawn into such a conflict. So it appeared that many militia groups were very wary. However, there has been a group of ex-Branch Davidians up in Colorado who recently faxed out an alert pledging they would be here armed if anything like this happens. So right now it's wait and see, and law enforcement officers are very heavily armed. There are at least 100 in the area, more on the way, and it's wait and see and try to end this peacefully. Brad?
Okay, thank you very much. Robert Riggs, live in West Texas.
Yeah, I personally hate to see the law enforcement people give up someone that they had arrested that morning in order to secure our safety, I guess. I really hate to see it.
Hostages of the self-proclaimed Republic of Texas are thankful tonight for their release. The second day of the West Texas standoff, however, tops our update tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Texas Rangers successfully negotiated a prisoner exchange today. Now talks focus on persuading at least 10 heavily armed members of the Republic of Texas to lay down their guns and come out. And Channel 8's Robert Riggs joins us now live from the West Texas Davis Mountains with the latest on the standoff. Robert?
John and Chip, tonight the Department of Public Safety SWAT team advanced closer to where members of the Republic of Texas are holed up. Telephone discussions also continue, and the leader of the Republic of Texas says he wants the United Nations to settle the standoff. Night fell on the second day of the standoff between Texas troopers and the belligerent group called the Republic of Texas. Despite boasts that hundreds of militia forces would rush to the Republic's defense, surrounding officers saw no sign of support. A Texas Ranger continued talking with Richard McLaren, the self-styled ambassador of the Republic. McLaren, who wants to make Texas a separate nation, declared war after the arrest of 2 members.
If somebody gets hurt, the world outcry that's going to happen is going to be beyond their conception, and those people will be tried for war crimes.
Negotiations led to the release of 2 hostages before dawn Monday. 51-year-old Joe Rowe received a shrapnel wound in the shoulder. The salty-talking retired Shell pipeline worker says he and his wife, M.A., became targets because of their outspoken criticism of McLaren.
He's trying to get something for nothing. His operation is totally illegitimate. He's been involved in one land grab scheme after another since 1985. And he's in my opinion, a total asshole for a neighbor.
Rowe says 3 Republic of Texas members launched a surprise attack with machine guns on Sunday. He says Greg Paulson, accompanied by his wife, fired a burst of 3 rounds through his door, which penetrated other rooms in the house. Rowe says Paulson announced they were prisoners of war. Paulson toted a Russian assault rifle while guarding the Republic's mountain hideout last week.
Why I'm here. You think I'm here for games? This isn't a Waco. This here is serious. I'm going to die for my principles. Yeah. So is my wife. So is everybody here.
Negotiators won the Rowe's release by setting Robert Sheed free. Sheed, the captain of the embassy guard, had been arrested on gun possession charges. Sheed carries a Chinese assault rifle loaded with a 75-round magazine.
But like any true freedom fighter, I will die on my feet before I'll live on my knees. It's as simple as that.
Rowe says the Republic wanted his home because of its strategic vantage point.
Do you think that McLaren will shoot at the police, or is he just bluffing?
They said yesterday they wouldn't fire the first shot. And my wife said, well, you fired the first shot at us. And then they said, well, if they pull a gun at us, we might fire the first shot. And I really believe if the law enforcement agencies move in on them, I believe they will try to resist. I really believe they will.
Most of the 75 families that live in the retirement community near the Republic's embassy voluntarily left and will not be allowed back inside. They're angry that officials didn't take swift action against McLaren for filing phony liens in a war of paper terrorism.
I've always felt very protected out there. We were away from city crime, away from thugs, until Mr. McLaren moved into the area and started bringing his thugs in.
A convoy brought in the Texas Department of Public Safety SWAT team from Austin. The Republic's armed forces' estimated strength of at least 10 people holed up in rugged terrain. It's a vast 6,000-acre mountain range that requires a small army to contain.
Tonight, the Jeff Davis County District Attorney filed criminal charges against 6 Republic of Texas members, including McLaren, and those charges include engaging in organized criminal activity and aggravated kidnapping. And a DPS spokesperson says that McLaren was made fully aware that the SWAT team has moved in closer to where they're holed up. They're about 2 miles away. Chip?
All right, thank you very much, Robert.
This is News 8 at 6.
They are armed, the people with them. You have to expect are willing to die, and that could happen.
Negotiations with Republic of Texas Separatists continue now into a 3rd day.
Delicate talks to end the armed confrontation top our news at 6. And today, the Houston lawyer for the Republic's leader tried to help get the group out alive. Channel 8's Robert Riggs joins us now from the Davis Mountains with the latest. Robert?
Gloria, both sides say they are optimistic about the possibility of bringing a peaceful end to this standoff, but the Republic's attorney stresses that the Separatists are willing to die for their beliefs. Alarm spread over the Davis Mountains that the Republic of Texas Separatists might firebomb the area. Most of its 120 residents evacuated the 6,000-acre retirement community. Joe Bearden, an oil exploration geophysicist from Houston, surveyed his house from a nearby mountaintop. He fears the Republic soldiers may have left a firebomb near his property shortly before the standoff started.
If you have a really severe brush fire and this type of brush, the evergreens with a high oil content, it'd be impossible to stop it in these winds.
The Republic holds a strategic position near the 8,000-foot Baldy Peak. An estimated 13 heavily armed adults live in this ramshackle trailer home in the Olympia Creek Canyon, led by self-styled Ambassador Richard McLaren, who believes his republic is the only legal government. Before the siege, McLaren's troops were seen in town filling containers with gasoline that residents fear may have been converted into firebombs.
It is clear to me that Rick is willing to die for what he believes in. It is also clear to me that his wife is willing to die at his side. I've talked to both of them on the phone. They are sincere.
Texas Rangers allowed McLaren's attorney into their command post to speak by phone to his client. McLaren sent out a packet of legal documents, possibly including demands. A DPS SWAT team used 2 Army surplus armored personnel carriers on loan from the Smith County Sheriff to pick up the packet. McLaren and 5 Republic of Texas members face criminal charges, including engaging in criminal activity and aggravated kidnapping.
I believe he understands that we have some major felony warrants to serve, and I believe he too understands that he will have some degree of a forum in open court to perhaps to express some of his views.
In Fort Davis, McLaren's neighbors want him out and out soon. They say the frontier town's true ambassador resides at the Hotel Olympia. It's a friendly cat named Cinco who greets guests at check-in.
Despite the laid-back mood of that cat, there are many vacationers who have been canceling their reservations here because of the standoff. Also today, Texas troopers issued an all-points bulletin to be on the lookout for 3 California militia members reported to be on their way here. They have not been spotted, and neither has anyone else that's interested, apparently, in supporting the Republic of Texas. Tracy?
Okay, Robert, thank you.
This is the News 8 Update.
But by God, let me tell you what's happening around the Davis Mountains. There are militia forces gathering, and they haven't told you yet. And it is fixing to go big time.
Tonight, the leader of the Republic of Texas does not sound like a man ready to surrender to authorities.
Officials sounded optimistic earlier today about negotiations with the Republic of Texas's self-proclaimed leader, Richard McLaren. But News 8's Robert Riggs heard a very different side tonight from the group's leader. Robert joins us now live from the Davis Mountains with this exclusive report. Robert?
Chip, I spoke to Richard McLaren tonight during a profanity-laced 10-minute phone call from his secret number. McLaren angrily challenged Texas Attorney General Dan Morales, who called him a terrorist today. For all the official optimism, the negotiations don't sound promising.
As the sun set on the 3rd day of the standoff, the leader of the Republic of Texas sounded more entrenched and distrustful as ever. In an exclusive telephone interview from the Separatist mountain stronghold, Richard McLaren says Texas and the United States don't know how to save face to end the siege. The self-styled ambassador of the Republic says he hasn't heard anything in the negotiations to convince his forces to lay down their guns.
The Attorney General is saying that I have criminal warrants, and at some point they have to surrender.
I got indictments on that son of a and there's warrants on him and all of them, and there's boys in East Texas and North Texas looking for him right now, and when they get picked up, they're going to be deported. So you can tell him to stick his warrants up his.
There's a sharply different view of progress at the DPS command post 2 miles away from the Republic's embassy. McLaren's attorney joined Rangers in telephone talks with McLaren. Tuesday evening, they optimistically called it quits for the night and declined to answer questions.
Negotiations are at a sensitive stage right now, but they are progressing well. However, the matter is still very serious, but we do remain very hopeful.
2 armored personnel carriers arrived for contingency plans, according to the DPS. McLaren sounds unfazed. Speaking from the ramshackle house trailer that serves as the Republic's embassy, McLaren claims he has diplomatic immunity, wants the United Nations to call a ceasefire, and says Texas has no authority over his republic.
Where is Reno or the State Department? That's who we're talking about. We're not talking about Morales here. Let me tell you what's happening around the Davis Mountains. There are militia forces gathering, and they haven't told you yet. And is fixing to go big time, and they come in here, their outside is going to make San Jacinto look like a hole.
McLaren's Davis Mountain neighbors around the rugged 6,000-acre retirement community believe he has hidden 8 gasoline firebombs and plans to torch a massive fire that would sweep across dry and oily evergreens.
McLaren also believes that the former president and father of Texas Governor George W. Bush is pulling the strings in the negotiations, and he says he's willing to die for his beliefs. Chip, John?
All right, thanks a lot, Robert.
This is News 8 at 6.
And if they want to overrun us, fine. They may kill a dozen of us or 2 dozen of us.
Unfortunately, we've lost a wheel. Communication has ceased with Mr. McLaren.
Negotiations break down with the Republic of Texas.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. The West Texas standoff tops our news this evening, and there are some big questions tonight as to what went wrong.
The lawyer for the leader of the Separatists believed he had an understanding that Richard McLaren would surrender today, but McLaren suddenly quit talking.
And Channel 8's Robert Riggs is now the last person to speak with McLaren. He joins us live from the Davis Mountains with more from his exclusive interview. Robert?
Well, Tracy and Gloria, the tone of the negotiations had turned very angry when I spoke to Richard McLaren late last night. Negotiators apparently misjudged his fanatical devotion to his breakaway republic. Talks fell silent with the Republic of Texas remote stronghold deep in the Davis Mountains. Texas Ranger negotiators sent an unanswered fax to the ramshackle trailer home used as the Republic's embassy. Richard McLaren, the self-proclaimed ambassador, cut communications Tuesday night. McLaren last spoke to WFAA in an exclusive telephone interview, demanding a ceasefire monitored by an international agency.
It has to do with the United Nations. We have every document to prove there is no more state of Texas, there is no more United States, and we want to know where Reno is and Clinton. They seem to be hiding.
McLaren's profanity-laced reaction to negotiations stunned his attorney. Terry O'Rourke of Houston rushed to WFA's satellite truck to hear McLaren's angry challenge.
It's not David Koresh. It's a totally different thing. I mean, clearly the best thing would be to get him out and have him in an office building downtown or something like that to get him in a different setting.
The Texas prison system sent in man-hunting bloodhounds and horses for mounted patrols. McLaren declared Texas troopers prisoners of war and demanded a statewide vote on Texas separating from the Union.
This is not the Alamo. This is not San Jacinto. I'm not Davy Crockett. You know, we're just a state law enforcement agency trying to bring some folks to justice.
At the Fort Davis office of McLaren's internet provider, a Fort Worth member of the Republic tried to post an order mobilizing militias. McLaren bragged that armed forces were headed toward Fort Davis.
I've got Mr. Williamson, who's an ex-Green Beret colonel of the United States Special Forces, who he's seen everything, and he said that the agencies in Washington ought to be leveled for the fraud they're doing to the people.
Later, Texas Rangers intercepted 7 men at a Pecos truck stop, including one from Greenville, armed with a trunkload of assault rifles and explosives. They told the waitress they would be ordering chow for a small army that was on the way. Well, McLaren's attorney and the Department of Public Safety are holding a press conference at the moment. What they've announced is that they're going to send in what they're calling a diplomatic pouch via one of the armored personnel carriers that's on loan from the Smith County Sheriff. Now, it is just statements like this that will confirm Richard McLaren's belief that he is an ambassador of an independent nation and that the Texas Rangers are invaders. Tracy, Gloria.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Meanwhile, direct negotiations with the Separatist Republic of Texas remain broken down tonight. The Department of Public Safety says the wheels fell off when the group's leader quit answering the phone. Channel 8's Robert Riggs joins us now live from the Davis Mountains with the latest on the standoff. Robert?
Chip, Richard McLaren's attorney thought he had reached a peaceful solution with his client. That is until he heard Richard McLaren's call to arms in our exclusive interview. Near the end of the 4th day of the standoff, Texas Rangers and the attorney for the Republic of Texas Separatists tried to jumpstart talks. An armored personnel carrier delivered what the DPS calls a diplomatic pouch to the self-proclaimed ambassador of the Republic. Richard McLaren stunned negotiators who believed they had an understanding that he would walk out on Wednesday. But McLaren, in an exclusive telephone interview with WFAA late Tuesday night, wanted a third international party involved.
We're not going to be sold out like the Freemen. Those boys, as you notice, haven't got a trial yet. Have you ever asked what's going on here? You know, the Speedy Trial Act, why haven't the Freemen been tried yet?
I have had difficulty communicating with my client.
McLaren's attorney says the validity of the Separatist views can be decided under the Vienna Convention and the Law of Nations. On the eve of the National Day of Prayer, he appealed to McLaren.
So if you're listening to this, Rick, or anybody else, you don't have to wait till tomorrow to say a prayer here, and not just for Rick McLaren and for the Republic of Texas and his people, but all the people involved here, because there are a lot of people around here who could get hurt.
Man-hunting bloodhounds arrive from the Texas prison system in case troopers have to flush out the 13 armed separatists. Angry neighbors say authorities should turn the dogs loose on McLaren. Handyman Dave Olson is among 70 families shut out by the standoff.
Have you ever lost a house? I mean, been put out of your own home? That's you know, I got dogs up there that need to be taken care of. Thank God.
Olson is a retired Army pilot, Vietnam veteran, sick of McLaren terrorizing neighbors with phony liens against their homes. Wishes he had knocked off McLaren years ago.
And that's the way a lot of people feel out here. A lot of people. It's a big old mountain out there. I don't think they'd ever find him. He just disappeared and everybody'd been happy. That's the way it should have been.
Olson and his wife have been wearing borrowed clothes and living in an RV trailer at a friend's home since the armed takeover on Sunday. Sandy Olson says McLaren's holding them hostage.
I can't believe they're trying to negotiate with him. He is not negotiable. He's crazy.
Most of the displaced families want Governor Bush to turn up the pressure and force out Richard McLaren one way or the other. Chip, John.
All right, thanks a lot, Robert.
Talks with the Texas Separatists resumed today on the 5th day of the standoff. Negotiations broke down 2 days ago when the Republic of Texas leader defiantly quit talking. Channel 8's Robert Riggs joins us live from the Davis Mountains with the latest now. Robert?
Well, Gloria, Richard McLaren and his wife Evelyn of Fort Worth finally answered their phone today shortly after noon. Later, they sent out a so-called diplomatic pouch full of papers for their attorney, and negotiators say they are delighted. Deep in the Davis Mountains, the Republic of Texas Separatists finally answered their telephone, breaking a 2-day silence. Texas Rangers reestablished contact after delivering a letter in a so-called diplomatic pouch to the Separatist embassy. They also tried to reach self-styled Ambassador Richard McLaren in an unusual half-hour broadcast over a local radio station. McLaren's attorney appealed that it was a national day of prayer.
We want this resolved safely. Please come in, and please come in.
Electric power trucks arrived to pull the plug on McLaren's power supply, but officials decided to keep electricity flowing as long as McLaren keeps talking.
So far, the conversations have really, frankly, not amounted to much more than chit-chat.
There's no chit-chat among residents who remain behind in the retirement community near McLaren's stronghold. Negotiators' efforts to keep McLaren from calling out appears to have disconnected phone service. Penny Webster is upset that she can't hear the voices of her elderly parents. They had worried that McLaren and his armed forces would go off the deep end.
One of my sisters was like, he's crazy, we got to get mom and dad out of there, but they're not going to leave. That was their home. They built that. We built that from the ground up.
A cage bus for moving inmates arrived from the Texas prison system. Residents hope it leaves soon loaded with separatists. There's growing resentment over the drawn-out negotiations.
When we're able to
at the Texas Capitol, Governor George W. Bush says lives are at risk and the expense is worth it.
I want to see a peaceful resolution to this. That's obviously the first choice. I'd like to see these people brought to justice. And they violated Texas law, and I believe they ought to be pay the penalty for that.
The Department of Public Safety says the key to ending the standoff is having rational talks, but local residents here say they are dealing with an irrational man. Gloria Tracy.
Okay, Robert, thank you.
Negotiations in the standoff resumed today after being stalled for 2 days, but the standoff suddenly took on an urgent tone late this evening. Channel 8's Robert Riggs joins us now live from the Davis Mountains with more. Robert?
Chip, the 5-day standoff reached a dramatic turning point within the last hour. Troopers have arrested more militia members trying to make their way here to reinforce members of the Republic. Security concerns have now pressed the Texas Rangers to quickly end the standoff before shooting erupts. Texas Rangers sent in their final offer to the Republic of Texas Separatists. A volley of shots rang out from the Republic's mountain stronghold. The 13 members lowered the flag in honor of a militiaman they falsely believed was shot to death in New Mexico coming to their aid. Texas troopers' concerns about sealing off the vast area prompted a final ultimatum. Richard McLaren's attorney warned him the situation is more dangerous than the Branch Davidian siege in Waco.
The government has made its last final written offer. They are people of their word. They are willing to do what you have asked in substance. Rick, the time to come out is now.
Texas Rangers cut electric power to the group's embassy, demonstrating that it is in charge and time is running out. An armored personnel carrier delivered the final offer. An impassioned letter from the daughter of Evelyn McLaren was also included, begging her mother to come out.
We know you love Rick, but we need you here. I miss you and can't bear the thought of anything happening to you. Please, please come out. All my love and hope and prayers. And then her name.
McLaren's attorney urged his clients that officials had agreed that they would be taken to a clean new jail in nearby Marfa if they give themselves up. He also assured them that the Texas Rangers have agreed that a hearing can be held in U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. on whether McLaren is in fact legally the ambassador of an independent nation here in Texas. As you might recall, that he is wanted along with 5 other Republic of Texas members for engaging in organized criminal activities, and 3 of those members are wanted for aggravated kidnapping in the standoff that started back on Sunday when they took 2 residents here hostage and later released them. Chip?
Okay, Robert, what has prompted overall this sense of urgency tonight?
Well, there were a number of other arrests here tonight in surrounding communities. As you may recall, on the internet, the web page the Republic had, they'd sent out what they called a red alert urging militias to converge on this area. Officials, the district attorney here became so concerned that he ordered the plug pulled at the internet provider, terminating the internet web page today. Also, as you recall, the other morning, there was the group of 7 individuals arrested in nearby Pecos. They had a truck of 2 trucks bristling with an arsenal of assault rifles, Chinese assault rifles. They found out that 2 of those people were convicted felons. It's illegal to possess a gun. They've been taken into custody. One of them is Jimmy D. Potter. He was wanted on 5 felonies from Palestine out in East Texas, and another one on Dudley Edward Vandergriff of Dallas, and he was out on parole. Those 2 men are in custody. This growing call to arms has got the officials here very alarmed. It's a vast 6,000-acre tract, and they simply do not have enough troopers to put around it to try to keep people coming in. They feel like they've got their back to the wall.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much.
Chip.
Robert Riggs tonight in the Davis Mountains.
This is News 8 at 6.
I pray reinforcements arrive before they overrun the embassy. Long live the Republic of Texas and the American people, and death to the New World Order.
The 6th day of a West Texas standoff moves closer tonight to an armed confrontation.
Good evening, everyone. We begin with the first of 2 major stories this evening, the standoff in West Texas.
The lawyer for the leader of the Texas Separatists pleaded for mercy today from Governor Bush and for more time to negotiate. But the man who calls himself the ambassador of the Republic of Texas angrily dismissed his lawyer and took a defiant stand. Channel 8's Robert Riggs joins us live now from the Davis Mountains with more on these latest developments. Robert?
Tracy, Richard McLaren appears fanatically set on making this his Alamo. At this hour, relatives of Evelyn McLaren of Fort Worth, including her brother, 2 daughters, and grandson, are here pleading for her to come out. She has said, "I think my mother was brainwashed. She is a level-headed woman, but she's crazy in love with a lunatic." Let's listen in for a moment.
And Phil, she has found her life's partner. When Mom moved to Fort Davis out here with you, you promised Julie and I not to worry, that you would take care of our mom.
And that no harm would ever come to her.
Well, now, Rick, I am begging you to make good on that promise. If you truly love our mother, please convince her to come out here with us. I do not understand why you would ever consider dying for a cause or allowing Mother or anyone else to die for a cause which you can't be alive to enjoy, to see any kind of result. I know you've worked your whole life, Rick, for your beliefs and to be heard and given a fair chance, to be given a fair chance with full public awareness.
Earlier, McLaren's attorney claimed SWAT teams were on the ready to attack here. The Texas Department of Public Safety says that is not true, but has issued its final written offer to come out. Military model helicopters circled Republic of Texas separatists who appear ready to die. Self-styled Ambassador Richard McLaren fired his attorney, saying he was being sold out. 5 of the 7 people left faxed out their last will and testaments. Texas Rangers received this letter written in a final tone.
Everyone has chosen to stay and hold the sovereign soil of the Republic and its foreign mission. It appears to us that Morales and Bush are the ones pulling the strings. You know Daddy Bush.
Texas Rangers tried to downplay reports that an assault is imminent. A bomb disposal unit arrived. Early Friday morning, a truck hauled in an armored tracked vehicle similar to those used to pump tear gas into the Branch Davidian compound 4 years ago.
They are in a position now to go in and execute the warrants, which I am convinced will mean the death of all or most of the people there.
McLaren and his wife remain in the trailer house shack they call an embassy. Their heavily armed so-called defense force of 4 men and one of their wives hid out in the woods. One newcomer to the Separatists defected early Friday morning. The captain of the guard for the Republic's embassy was one of 6 members wanted on criminal charges. Robert Scheit walked out carrying a so-called diplomatic pouch.
He later told the Texas Rangers, quoted as saying, "I had to get out of there. I couldn't stand it anymore."
It was Scheit's arrest on Sunday that triggered the standoff. In retaliation, 3 other Separatists shot machine gun rounds into the neighboring home of Joe and Margaret Ann Rowe. Joe Rowe, an outspoken critic of McLaren, suffered shrapnel wounds. Both were held hostage until authorities released Scheit in a prisoner exchange on Monday. Just last week, Scheit bragged he would stand and die.
But like any true freedom fighter, I will die on my feet before I'll live on my knees. It's as simple as that.
Friday morning, McLaren's attorney phoned the Texas governor to intervene. George W. Bush declined the call, leaving it to his chief legal counsel. The governor's office says the state's top law officers on the scene of the standoff will make the final decision.
McLaren's attorney claims that as part of the negotiations, Senator Jerry Patterson of Houston has agreed to set up an interim committee to study the Republic's claim that it is an independent nation. Channel 8's Alan Berg is standing by live in the Austin State House Bureau. Alan, any truth to that?
This is the News 8 Update.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. Hostiles invading Republic of Texas Embassy. We have hostiles in the woods. This is a mayday call to any nation of the world. Any nation of the world. We are being invaded.
Even under the warning of an attack, the leader of the Republic of Texas tonight remains defiant. His radio message to authorities tops the update tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. 7 members of the Separatist group are still holed up in West Texas. Today, relatives of Richard McLaren's wife pleaded with them to surrender. And Channel 8's Robert Riggs joins us now live from the Davis Mountains with more on these latest developments. Robert?
John, the Fort Worth family of Richard McLaren's wife tried to use love to get their mother out tonight. But in a strident radio message, Richard McLaren sounds as maniacal and as determined as ever to make this his Waco.
I guess you all boys didn't learn anything from Waco or Ruby Ridge or whatever.
The leader of the Republic of Texas standoff broadcast a defiant message over shortwave radio Friday evening. Richard McLaren sounded eerily like David Koresh. He taunted troopers surrounding his stronghold in the Davis Mountains.
And you fools are going to come in here and kill me, huh? And overrun this mission? We'll be prepared to take the fall, because the people that have the documents are going to fry your ass. You're the dead meat. We're not.
McLaren, in a coarse voice, claimed he's the ambassador of an independent nation recognized by the United Nations.
You're fixing to start something that you can't stop. And no matter what happens, George Bush and his daddy and Bill Clinton sniffing his drugs over there, you're all going to be blamed.
7 heavily armed adults remain holed up at a trailer house shack that they call an embassy. 6 of them sent out their last wills and testaments.
Rick, all I can say, if you're any kind of a husband, you will get your wife out of harm's way. Please tell her to leave.
The Fort Worth family of Evelyn McLaren made a tearful plea. 2 daughters from Evelyn's previous marriage prayed their mother would realize there's more life to live with her only grandson. But they say Richard McLaren is a lunatic who has brainwashed their mother.
I'm begging you to please, you and Mom both come out. But if you can't find it in your heart or find the courage to come out, please see to it that Mom comes out.
One Separatist lost heart for the cause Friday morning. Robert Scheit surrendered. It was Scheit's arrest last Sunday that triggered the siege. 3 Separatists retaliated, wounding Joe Rowe with machine gun fire. They took McLaren's outspoken critic hostage along with his wife. Authorities swapped Scheit for the Rose release last Monday. Scheit had vowed to die on his knees.
He later told the Texas Rangers, quoted as saying, "I had to get out of there. I couldn't stand it anymore."
Texas Rangers built up for an assault at the rejection of their negotiators' final offer. A bomb disposal unit arrived. It's feared the Separatists might firebomb the Davis Mountain Range. Early Friday, authorities hauled in an armored tank towing vehicle like the one used to pump tear gas into the Branch Davidian compound outside Waco 4 years ago.
I'm here to plead with the governor of Texas for mercy, just to give us a little more time, just a little more time.
McLaren fired his attorney, Terry O'Rourke, saying he was being sold out. Still, O'Rourke tried to get Governor George W. Bush on the phone to intervene. Bush declined. He left the final decision to state police commanders.
What civilians are you trying to protect? Are you trying to protect Rick? Because I don't think I really care.
None of us do.
The standoff wore out the patience of 70 neighbors shut out of their homes for the week. At a courthouse meeting in nearby Fort Davis Friday night, they demanded that authorities get the standoff over as quickly as possible. They have been terrorized for years by the filing of phony liens against their property.
We've just learned that the SWAT team for the Department of Public Safety has now moved within 4 football field lengths of the so-called Embassy of the Republic of Texas. That is the reason why you heard at the start of our newscast that Mayday message from Richard McLaren. It appears they are tightening the noose here tonight. Also, a few minutes ago, 4 trucks for fighting brush fires rushed into the scene. There have been threats and fears that McLaren might try to end this in an apocalyptic fire similar to the Branch Davidian siege in Waco. John?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Robert.
We interrupt this program to bring you a News 8 special report.
Good afternoon, Brad Watson, Channel 8 News, reporting live from the Channel 8 newsroom. We're breaking away from the Gulf for just a few minutes to bring you an update now on the situation out in West Texas near Fort Davis. It appears at this hour that the standoff between the DPS and the members of the Republic of Texas, that faction out there, is now coming to an end. Channel 8's Robert Riggs has been leading our coverage there for the last week, and he joins us now live. What is the latest, Robert?
Brad, we have been monitoring Department of Public Safety transmissions with our SWAT teams who have been on the scene of the Republic of Texas embassy that is deep in a canyon here. It is our understanding that 4 people are giving themselves up, including Richard McLaren. At last report, they had come out of a ramshackle trailer that they call their embassy. They were stacking guns by the flag of the Republic. The SWAT team officers were asking them each single file to individually walk down a gravel road. This leaves 2 people thus far unaccounted for. There were 6 still remaining in there. This apparently has been precipitated this morning. Richard McLaren's wife, who is from Fort Worth, Evelyn McLaren, she walked out at 11 a.m. after a very heartfelt, tearful appeal by her family who had come here last night from Fort Worth. She came out, went to the DPS command post, began working with the Texas Rangers on the phone with Richard McLaren, urging him to come out. Now, last night it didn't look like there was any chance of anything like this happening. Richard McLaren was on shortwave radio trying to rally defenses of militias to come here to defend him, taunting officials who had surrounded. Now it appears they have given up and have lost heart. Brad?
Robert, last night we knew from your report that the DPS had come within 440 yards of the so-called embassy out there. Has the DPS today said it's tightened its tactics any? Have they moved any closer that may have precipitated this surrender today, along with Evelyn McLaren's surrender?
Actually, it was the opposite, Brad. They had eased off here. Once that Evelyn McLaren was allowed to come out, they decided that negotiations were working. This was a very positive sign as far as they were concerned. It appeared that they were even willing to go at least 3 more days. They were telling Evelyn McLaren's family that they would probably be keeping her at the command post for 72 hours. And they also looked like they were going to go the distance because they were telling local residents that they were going to give them identification cards so they could be allowed back inside. But now, Brad, it appears that according to some of those transmissions, at least 4 people may be laying down their arms.
You've been out there a number of times doing stories about this faction in the Republic, Robert. What kind of conditions have they been staying in out there for the last 6 days. Are they of the kind of conditions with no water or power now that just make life unbearable, so they're going to come out, do you think?
Well, indeed, it had to be getting unbearable. This was a very, very small trailer, really incapable of holding the number of people out there with any level of comfort. This is a place, too, that you have to truck water, and it was my understanding that there was no well there. Also, once again, now we're getting another transmission that no one is in custody, but the 4 people are outside this so-called embassy, stacking up arms. They had quite a collection of weapons in the place. But this place was deep back in a canyon. Literally, they were boxed in and surrounded. But as far as the DPS SWAT team, they really had not been increasing pressure, although they were showing signs that they were ready to go in and serve the arrest warrants on 5 of the members that were in there that were still wanted. Late here last night, there was a steady stream of fire equipment coming in. There had been some concerns, some threats that this group might try to set off fire bombs. And they were also bringing in armed forces communication systems. As you can see behind me, this is a Black Hawk military helicopter that has been working with the Texas Rangers here. Sources tell me that this helicopter is equipped with infrared night vision equipment. They had been flying surveillance over the mountaintop stronghold of this group each evening. They had been spotting everybody sneaking around in the woods armed. There also had been some concerns that they were out burning trash or something in barrels at night. That had also heightened the fire concerns here. This is certainly a tinderbox in the Davis Mountains, very oily evergreens. The fire would spread rapidly. But it appears that this is going to have a peaceful end. It is, as I say, quite different than what we expected. Frankly, we expected at the crack of dawn this morning there would be an all-out attack. That apparently changed because at 11 last night, Richard McLaren's wife, Evelyn, from Fort Worth, told a Texas Ranger on the phone that she wanted to come out. Brad?
So at this point, Robert, what are we waiting for? Do you expect some confirmation from the DPS here just shortly?
Yes, Brad. We had been told that the Department of Public Safety spokesperson will be late, that he's at the command post but has some sort of announcement.
And as we wait for that, hopefully in just a few minutes, we understand that also some additional armored personnel carriers or military-type equipment were brought in last night. Do you think there was any way for the Republic of Texas members to know that they were going to be facing such kind of hardware should the DPS decide to come in and try and get them out?
Brad, it was clearly there was a sort of a stepping up of preparations here, and it was done in full view of the media here. All of this equipment was being driven by this large satellite media compound, literally hundreds of media here. Obvious to all of us, it was being reported widely in the media. The families of Evelyn McLaren who came here, they were very aware of the buildup that was taking place, and frankly, they said today they were quite scared that their mother was going to die in there. And so this was all very, very evident. And one of the telling things that happened yesterday is they brought in a armored track vehicle that is used for towing tanks. It is the same type of vehicle that was used up in the Branch Davidian siege outside Waco to spray tear gas in. So it was clear that this, if turned into a shooting war, this was going to be won by the SWAT team.
Okay, Channel 8's Robert Riggs out live in West Texas right now. Robert, we're going to go back to our regular programming while we wait for some confirmation from the DPS and this news conference to start to let us know for sure that the standoff for 6 days between DPS and the Republic of Texas faction near Fort Davis is actually coming to an end. So we'll let you go back to golf now. If this does happen, we may cut back in here in just a few minutes. For now, Brad Watson, Channel 8.
This has been a special report from News 8. We now return to our regular programming. This is News 8 at 6.
We're delighted. We are delighted to finally resolve a standoff situation that has been in the national limelight in a peaceful manner. We again hope that we've shown the world how it's done right.
After 6 days, the Republic of Texas standoff in the mountains of West Texas is over. Good evening. The standoff between the Department of Public Safety and one faction of the Republic of Texas ended this afternoon peacefully and with no one hurt. 4 members of the group gave themselves up, but a search is now on in the mountains for 2 of the Separatists who fled on foot. Channel 8's Robert Riggs has been following the story since it began last Sunday and joins us now live again from the Davis Mountains. Robert?
Brad, the tearful pleas of a Fort Worth family appear to have helped end the standoff. Evelyn McLaren had sent out her last will and testament. She was prepared to die along with her husband, Richard McLaren, who was the so-called ambassador of the group. But she had a sudden change of heart and convinced most of the others to follow her out today.
Received information that they are going to give up. Command Post 905. First 2 are in custody.
The surrender of 4 Republic of Texas Separatists crackled on Texas Rangers radios as they ended the 7-day standoff. 2 other militant members made a break for it. A Black Hawk helicopter chased them as they put on backpacks and tried to climb out of a rugged canyon in the Davis Mountains. But the other 4 wanted on criminal charges surrendered after signing a ceasefire agreement with Texas Rangers.
They had a military-style ceremony at which they laid down their arms. I saw a photograph of the arms. They laid them in a circle. I counted 10 long arms, 10 rifles of various sorts that ranged from hunting rifles like a lever-action 30-30 to what appeared to be semi-automatic assault-style weapons.
Richard McLaren, the self-proclaimed ambassador of the Republic, surrendered after vowing he would die here. The group's webmaster, Robert Otto, a.k.a. White Eagle, also gave up. Rangers had moved to within a length of 4 football fields of the group's stronghold. McLaren's wife, Evelyn of Fort Worth, came out at 11 Saturday morning and indicated the others were ready to give up. They stacked guns at a flagpole outside a trailer house shack used as their embassy and turned over briefcases to a SWAT team who asked that it be x-rayed. The group had threatened to booby-trap the area and 1 explosive had been discovered.
There were several cans of gasoline around the compound, electrical wiring, and batteries. Mr. McLaren assured us that these devices were no longer armed and constituted no danger.
2 other Separatists declined to surrender but sat down, saying they would allow themselves to be captured without incident. Armored personnel carriers moved in to take Greg Paulson and his wife Karen, who were wanted for aggravated kidnapping. They're accused of taking a couple hostage, kicking off the standoff last Sunday. Dog handlers from the Texas prison system turned bloodhounds loose on the trail of Richard Keys and Mike Matson. Keys is also wanted for aggravated kidnapping. Keys and Matson remain on the run this evening. SWAT teams looking for them have also found 2 disarmed booby traps, but that they fear the 2 Separatists are running around rearming some of the booby traps. And as we reported earlier this week, there had been a plan here to try to set off fire bombs to set this vast 6,000-acre tract of land on fire. It is a tinderbox with evergreens and dry brush. Also, there is relief around this community. This standoff had shut approximately 70 families out of their homes, and they had complained for years about Richard McLaren. They say he had terrorized them by filing phony liens against their property, and they couldn't get the state attorney general or federal authorities to do anything about it. Well, now tonight they are grateful to have their lives and town back.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, I am so happy to hear that. A lot of my close friends have really suffered at the hands of Rick McLaren. They really have. And I hope for their sake that they'll get their lives back together real fast.
As long as he's alive, it's not over, as far as I'm concerned. If he ever gets out and he comes back to the resort, he won't stand a chance.
Law enforcement sources tell News 8 this evening that both McLaren and his wife and some of the other members face sealed indictments on multiple counts of mail fraud. They're accused of passing phony Republic of Texas checks in the Dallas area. Brad?
Okay, thank you very much. Robert Riggs, live.
This is the News 8 Update.
I believe that we are correct, and hopefully in the end, truth will persevere.
A fight to the death, but a week-long standoff with the Republic of Texas ends without a shot fired.
I think this is Texas law enforcement at its finest.
Good evening. This faction of the Republic of Texas may not recognize the state of Texas, but the 7 members holed up in the Davis Mountains at least recognize today the time had come to give up. 5 of them, including leader Richard McLaren, surrendered, while 2 fled into the mountains. Those who gave up went to court tonight. Channel 8's Robert Riggs joins us live now from near Fort Davis with the latest. Robert?
Brad, two of those separatists are still fugitives tonight. They fled on foot, they donned backpacks and gave an obscene gesture to a helicopter overhead and took off over a very rugged terrain here. This is a 6,000-acre tract. They have brought in a pack of bloodhounds from the Texas prison system. They've also got Texas prison system officers on horseback going through this mountainous terrain trying.
on soliciting and the commitment to working with them on gathering other contributions. Thank you.
Good evening. I wish to bring to you greetings from the government and people of Nigeria, and as an expression of our commitment to the cause of Africans in the diaspora, I wish to pledge an additional contribution of $10,000 for the conversion of the NAWCP. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Pardon me. Just 2 seconds, please, Mr. Rowan.
Take your time.
From the treasurer of the church, the National Church of African Methodism, $500, and from Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church, $1,000. Thank you so very much. Our treasurer is Brother Matthew Shannon. Thank you so much.
Carl, I didn't bring a check, Carl. I have a business card, but and we all know in Washington, D.C., business cards aren't worth very much. But if somebody would call me in the morning, I'd give them $5,000 for this one. We have some judges who have to catch planes, so we're going to do these 3, and we're going to find a way to trip you as you go out the door if you didn't get a chance to give. Please, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Janaea Richardson. I'm president of the Howard University NAACP College Chapter, and this is my vice president, Clecy Boone. Although we are a struggling chapter, we're struggling for money also, we're going to make a pledge of $100 and putting out a challenge to all the other college chapters to make a donation to the National Board. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. On behalf of Van McCoy Music Incorporated, the Family Corporation, preserving the musical legacy of the late, great Washingtonian Van McCoy, we would like to pledge the first $5,000 from the sale of our new album, Carn Sings McCoy, where the great artist Gene Carn has done the music of the legendary McCoy. And as is customary in our industry, we always give an advance. We are giving an advance pledge tonight of $2,500, and the balance will follow as the sales come forward. But the check will be in the mail by the end of this month.
Mr. Roy, I didn't know you were going to take up a collection, so I didn't bring a check, but my name is...
That's still coming.
My name is Don Fowler. I'm from South Carolina, and for the two people who are participating in this program today from South Carolina, my dear friend and my bishop, Bishop James and Judge Matthew Perry, you'll get $1,000 from me.
Yes, I'm... Right.
He is the chairman of the Democratic National.
Yes, sir. I know who he is. Yes. Mrs. Coretta Scott King just handed me an envelope, $1,600 from her family. And that check that I said came from the Renaissance Center did not. It came from an individual, Don Barden. Thank you, Mr. Barden. Now we must move along, so we're going to jump to the main part of this program. Judge Keith, would you and your colleagues, I'm declaring the fundraising part of this meeting over. And we'll go into the second phase. Judge Keith, would you and your colleagues please come forward?
I'm going to ask that the Metro Airs would sing for us as Judge Keith and his colleagues are coming to participate in the installation.
Lord, keep so busy praising my Jesus.
Keep so busy praising my Jesus. Keep so busy praising my Jesus. Ain't got time to die.
When I'm a healing the sick,
I'm praising my Jesus.
when I'm a healing the sick,
I'm praising my Jesus.
when I'm a healing the sick,
I'm praising my Jesus. Ain't got time to die. 'Cause it takes all of my time to praise my Jesus. All of my time to praise the Lord. If I don't praise him, the rock's gonna cry out. Glory and honor, glory and honor. Ain't got time to die.
Lord, keep so busy working for the kingdom.
Keep so busy working for the kingdom. Keep so busy working for the kingdom. Ain't got time to die.
When I'm a people,
I'm working for the
when
kingdom.
I'm a people,
I'm working for the kingdom.
I'm a people,
I'm working for the kingdom. Ain't got time to die. 'Cause it takes all of my time to praise my Jesus. All of my time to praise the Lord. If I don't praise him, the rock's gonna cry out. Glory and honor, glory and honor. Ain't got time to die.
I keep so busy working for the master.
Keep so busy working for the master. Keep so busy working for the master. Ain't got time to die.
When I'm a giving my all,
I'm working for the master.
I'm giving my all.
I'm working for the
When
master.
I'm a giving my all,
I'm working for the master. Ain't got time to die. 'Cause it takes all of my time to praise my Jesus. All of my time
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the pleasure this evening on this historic occasion of the federal judges around the country administering the oath to our distinguished CEO. I present to you as they walk down the aisle the Honorable Robert L. Carter, Judge of the U.S. District Court, Southern District of New York, the Honorable Nathaniel R. Jones, Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit in Cincinnati, the Honorable A. Leon Higginbotham, Jr., Retired Chief Judge, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, the Honorable Matthew Perry, Judge, U.S. District Court, District of South Carolina, the Honorable Norma Holloway Johnson, U.S. District Judge, the District of Columbia, the Honorable Judith W. Rogers, Judge, U.S. Court of Appeals, District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. We will hear from the Honorable Leon Higginbotham. Very short message for him, letting you know the significance of all of these African-American federal judges doing this afternoon. Leon?
Judge Keith and ladies and gentlemen, at this meeting with these 7 judges, we give a simple but we hope profound message. It is that first, the goals of the NAACP and the goals of the United States Constitution are the same: equal justice under law. There is perhaps an even more important message, and by our presence here, we say that but for the NAACP, not one of us would today be federal judges. The battles which were started by Moorfield Story, a white lawyer in Boston, carried on by Charles Hamilton Houston, William Henry Hastie, and Thurgood Marshall, that they were the battles which made it possible for now more than 70 African Americans to become federal judges. And I want to compliment Attorney General Reno because during the last 3 years we've had more African Americans put on the court, more women put on the court than the history of this nation. And let me close with a page of history. 116 years ago in this very city, we had the Hayes-Tilden Compromise. And the issue was whether Rutherford B. Hayes would become President of the United States. And in order to get it, he needed 19 electoral votes from the South and Oregon. He got them. And on the day when he got those votes, and this is a verbatim quote, the distinguished chairman